You sent your own sister to prison. What kind of sister are you? The moment I stepped out of the courtroom, my father's furious roar struck me like a physical blow. His words were sharp as knives. Beside him, my mother, who had collapsed in tears, lifted her face twisted with hatred and screamed, "Monster! How dare you ruin her life like that?" For the first time, I looked straight at them and answered calmly, "I didn't send her to prison. Her own crimes did, and your blind love for her. Don't ever call me your daughter again, because I no longer have parents." That day, my family ended, both under the law and within my heart, completely and forever. They will never understand the weight of that decision, nor will they ever realize that this story didn't begin here, in this courtroom, on the day of the verdict. It all began that night. The night I came home, carrying the brightest success of my life. My name is Carla, 38 years old. I work as a senior developer at a major IT company in Silicon Valley. Raising my 9-year-old daughter alone in this industry has never been easy. For the past 3 weeks, I had been in London, pouring everything I had into a massive $200 million project. During that time, I left my only daughter in the care of the person I trusted most in the world, my sister Abby. I had no idea that very trust would become the key to taking everything away from me. When the San Francisco skyline came into view through the airplane window, all the exhaustion from the transatlantic flight melted away, replaced by a rush of excitement. I wanted to see my daughter soon, and I wanted to go home. Half a year earlier, with trembling hands, I'd signed the contract for our dream house, our castle, a room painted wall to wall in pink, made just for my little girl, and a spot in the garden where we'd promised to plant flowers together in the spring. As I stepped out of the taxi, I took a deep breath, the scent of fresh grass and new wood mingling in the night air. But then, as I started toward the front door, my feet froze. There, in front of the gate, stood a sign I had never seen before. Red background, white letters. Sold. My heart turned to ice. This had to be a mistake. I told myself that again and again as my trembling hand reached for the key, but the lock rejected it. The key didn't fit. Panic rising, I fumbled for my phone and called the only person who might have an answer, my sister, Abby. The word Abby on my phone screen suddenly looked ominous. After several rings, her sleepy, yawning voice came through the line. "Hello, Carla? Do you have any idea what time it is? It's the middle of the night." Her tone, so casual, so ordinary, left me speechless for a moment. In the middle of this nightmare, she sounded as if she lived in another world entirely. Barely able to speak, I whispered, "Abby, I'm sorry to call so late. I'm standing in front of the house, but the key doesn't work. And there's a sold sign out front. It must be a mistake. Do you know anything about this?" I could hear her chuckle softly on the other end. That sound, cheerful, almost amused, sent a chill down my spine. "Oh, that? You finally noticed? I was going to say surprise." "Surprise?" My throat went dry. My heart pounded painfully. Abby went on in a bright, carefree voice. "Yeah, your house got sold. I sold it for you." My mind went blank. A shrill ringing echoed in my ears. This had to be a joke. A cruel, tasteless joke in the middle of the night. "What are you saying? I don't understand. You don't have the right to do that." "Sure I do. Remember that power of attorney you signed 6 months ago? You gave it to me. You said it was in case something happened to you while you were away, remember?" I remembered it vividly. Before I left for London. Just in case something happened to me and my daughter needed medical consent. It was supposed to be a symbol of trust, of sisterhood. That document was for medical emergencies, not for selling my house. Abby sighed in irritation. "The details don't matter. Anyway, I found a great buyer, paid in cash. $850,000, closed the deal right away." My breath caught in my throat. $850,000 for a house worth $2.8 million? My blood ran cold. Before I knew it, I was screaming into the phone. "Abby, do you even understand what you've done? Cancel that contract. Right now." My voice echoed through the quiet neighborhood, the only sound in the night. I was gripping the phone so hard that my nails dug into my palm, but Abby's voice on the other end of the line was unbelievably calm, detached, as if none of this concerned her at all. "It's too late now. And honestly, why are you so angry?" "Don't be angry. At a time like this?" I could almost hear something snap inside my head. "Don't be angry. You sold my house. You sold my and my daughter's future without my permission. How can you not understand that? I did it for you. For me? So while you were smiling at me, promising to take good care of my daughter, you were already planning this? There was irritation in Abby's voice now. And something else. Contempt. Think about it. You're a single mother living alone with your daughter. That huge house is way too much for you. It's hard to manage and totally unnecessary. Even Mom said she's been worried about how unrealistic you're being. Unrealistic. That word pierced my chest like a poisoned arrow. It was the same thing people had thrown at me countless times throughout my career. But hearing it now, from my own sister, the person I had trusted with my child, that cut deeper than anything else. It had always been like this. When I got good grades, she sulked. When I earned something, she wanted it too. Even this house, my dream, my proof of success, to her, it wasn't a celebration of her sister's hard work. It was something to envy, to tear down. And to satisfy that envy, she used my trust as her weapon. You have no idea how complicated the process was, Abby continued, her tone proud as if she were boasting about an accomplishment. Usually companies are super picky about identification, you know? But I found this small, highly rated company online. They were great, super efficient. The guy even said I handled the paperwork perfectly. You should be thanking me. I was speechless. So she had been smiling at my daughter, playing the perfect aunt, while secretly contacting real estate agents, using my power of attorney as her license to steal. Could malice really wear such an innocent face? She truly believed this wasn't a crime, that it was just smart business. With barely a voice left, I whispered, "Are you even sane?" In response to my question, Abby answered with a look of genuine puzzlement and a hint of pride. Of course I am, maybe more clear-headed than ever. You're the one who needs to calm down. Calm down. How could I possibly calm down at this moment? While I was still struggling for words, Abby delivered her next revelation, as if she were handing me a gift. Oh, I almost forgot. Don't worry, I used part of the money as a down payment for your new apartment. Downtown in a really safe building. I made sure it's close to good schools, too. It'll be so much more convenient than that house in the suburbs. I could feel something collapsing inside my mind. She hadn't just taken my home. She had rearranged my entire life without asking. While holding my daughter in her arms, she had planned out how to dismantle and rebuild my world on her terms. This wasn't kindness. It was control. Pure, condescending control. What did I do with the rest of the money? Taking advantage of my silence, she continued, clearly enjoying herself. Well, we decided to take a family trip to Hawaii next week. 2 whole weeks. It's a little reward for my husband. He works so hard. First-class tickets, 5-star hotel, all booked. And it's all thanks to you. Her voice was full of genuine joy, not a trace of guilt. She and her family were flying to paradise on the money she stole from me. The moment I understood that, my rage went past boiling point and cooled into something eerily calm. It was both resignation and an unshakable resolve. Thank you, Abby. What? See? I knew you'd appreciate it eventually. Yes, thank you, for showing me exactly what kind of person you really are. What's that supposed to mean? It means we're done. There's nothing left to say. For the first time, her voice wavered, panic creeping in. Wait, what's that tone? After everything I did for you? You're such an ungrateful... I hung up before she could finish. The dull beep, beep of the disconnected call echoed in the still night air. I stood there, frozen in front of the sold sign. My future, my dreams, every promise I had made to my daughter, gone overnight, and yet not a single tear fell. There was no time for grief. I had to fight. This injustice could never, ever be forgiven. I would wait for dawn, and then call a lawyer. That was my vow. By sunrise, I was already moving. I had barely slept, yet somehow my body felt light, because anger had burned away my exhaustion. I immediately contacted my longtime lawyer, Mr. Ford, and asked for an emergency consultation. At his office, I explained the events of the previous night with a calmness that surprised even me, laying them out in order. Mr. Ford listened in silence, then spoke gravely. Carla, this is one of the most malicious cases I've handled. He scanned the digital copy of the power of attorney I'd brought and continued with a somber expression. This document is strictly limited to medical emergencies for your daughter while you're abroad. It contains no authority to sell real estate or to act for financial transactions. Abby's actions constitute clear fraud. Above all, she abused the trust placed in her to care for your most precious child. That makes this particularly egregious. From a legal perspective, he listed, one by one and without mercy, the crimes my sister had committed. First, unlawful use of the power of attorney. Second, real estate fraud by orchestrating a sale at an unnaturally low price. Third, embezzlement for diverting the proceeds to herself. Each of these could be charged as serious felonies carrying substantial prison terms. Felonies. The weight of that word pressed down on me. Are you prepared to fight? Mr. Ford's earnest eyes met mine. I didn't hesitate for a moment. Yes, please do it. On my way out, I made a final, desperate call to my parents. Maybe, before I crossed the irrevocable line of criminal charges, they would talk to Abby and make her see reason. I hadn't yet abandoned that foolish, hopeful thought. When I explained the situation to my mother, her response was colder than I could have imagined. Oh, Carla, you're still upset over that? Abby did it for your own good. She's been taking care of your daughter without a single complaint, and yet this is too much. Mom, this isn't about gratitude. It's hard for a single woman to keep up such a big house, isn't it? We've been worried. Can't you just accept your sister's concern? My father's voice cut in over the line, shouting, Carla, you may have succeeded, but you're getting arrogant. Show some gratitude to your family. I tried to respond calmly. Emotions wouldn't help. I had to rely on legal facts. Dad, this isn't about gratitude. What Abby did is illegal. My lawyer. Your lawyer? My father snorted. You always go running to outsiders about family matters. That's why people call you cold. Try thinking about Abby's feelings. She's under stress and can't live as freely as you do. I couldn't believe it. They were trying to justify Abby's criminal acts by calling them stress. Was my success a source of stress for my sister? I thought you were proud of what I achieved, I heard myself say, my voice shaking without me noticing. Proud? Sure, proud. But a woman's happiness isn't just that. Like Abby, she found a good husband. She's raising children. That normal kind of happiness matters too. She lives nearby and checks on you all the time. You work too hard. Suddenly, everything became clear. Abby had been playing the worried sister while skillfully framing her jealousy as concern, turning our parents to her side. To them, my career and the house I built alone were outside of what they could understand, merely reasons to worry. They loved and accepted the version of Abby that lived under their protection, who pursued a conventional life. That had always been the case. My mother said one last decisive thing through the receiver. Anyway, don't make a scene, Carla. Abby is more delicate than you. If anything happens to her, we will never forgive you. Those were my mother's words. She threatened me, the victim, and worried about the perpetrator. In that moment, the thin thread that had kept me connected to them snapped. My last naive hope was shattered. All right, Mom. My voice was as cold as ice. I will not rely on you anymore. I will handle this my way. Carla, wait. You can't actually call the police. I cut the call before she finished. Alone and abandoned, yet oddly not afraid, I felt a cold strength rise from deep within. With no family left to shelter, there was nothing to hold back my actions. I was ready to abandon them. After ending the call with my parents, I contacted Mr. Ford again. Please. That single word set everything in motion. The next day, Mr. Ford and I visited the Economic Crimes Division of the District Attorney's Office. I submitted every piece of evidence I had gathered and filed an official complaint. The suspect exploited a position of trust by caring for the victim's daughter while committing the crime. It's an extremely malicious case. Mr. Ford emphasized this firmly to the investigators. It felt as though a heavy iron door had closed behind me. There was no going back. Yet strangely, my heart was calm. The investigation proceeded quietly but swiftly. The lead detective, clearly experienced with cases like this, took particular interest in the company's sloppy verification procedures and the unusually low sale price of my house. Abby and her husband's bank accounts were also being thoroughly traced. Meanwhile, completely unaware of what was happening, Abby and her family flew off to Hawaii as planned. Her social media lit up daily with pictures from paradise. A champagne glass and a first-class seat. The turquoise ocean from a five-star hotel balcony. Her smiling face, arms full of designer shopping bags, standing next to her husband. Those photos were all built on the money she made by selling my house. An illusion of happiness funded by betrayal. Each image cut into me like a knife, yet they only hardened my resolve. I immediately canceled the downtown apartment lease Abby had signed without my consent. There was no way I could live with my daughter in a place paid for with stolen money. Instead, I found a small temporary apartment on my own and moved there with my daughter. "Mommy, when can we go back to our house?" she asked again and again. Each time, my heart nearly broke. All I could do was hold her close and whisper, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Mommy will build you an even more beautiful castle one day." I returned to work and had to put in many times the effort I had before, but it no longer felt like a burden. I had something to protect and someone to fight. That truth alone gave me strength. Abby returned from Hawaii completely unaware of what had happened, still basking in the afterglow of her dreamlike vacation as she went about her daily life. But 2 months after the criminal complaint was filed, the day finally came. She received an official notice, a summons to appear. It wasn't a voluntary interview. It carried the weight of legal compulsion. No right to refuse. That single document froze the cheerful atmosphere in Abby's household. At first, Abby had tried to act tough, insisting it was just a conversation. But the legal wording stating she had no right to refuse finally made her realize the seriousness of the situation. Her husband panicked. My parents called me, hysterical. "What is going on?" But I simply said, "Please speak to my lawyer," and hung up. Abby appeared at the police station on the appointed day with an attorney my parents had hired for her. The lawyer initially dismissed it as a family matter that wouldn't escalate into a criminal case. But when the detectives from the Economic Crimes Division laid out the evidence, his face reportedly went pale. The original power of attorney that had been misused, the testimony from the company staff. And then, the very next day, after my house was sold for $850,000, the same amount was deposited into Abby's husband's account, from which expenses for their Hawaii trip and luxury purchases were withdrawn, a bank record far too obvious to ignore. Then the detectives asked the decisive question. "You proceeded with these real estate transactions while you were caring for your sister Carla's daughter, correct?" Abby could only answer, "Yes." At that moment, she admitted that her actions were not a mere financial dispute, but a calculated and malicious betrayal of her sister's trust. The detectives gave her one last chance. "Did you do this with the intent to deceive your sister, Carla?" If she said yes, it would be a confession of fraud. Her lawyer frantically shook his head, but Abby, panicked and consumed by guilt, broke down in tears and blurted out, "Because it's not fair. Carla gets everything." That single sentence did more than admit her guilt. It exposed the ugly envy that had driven her all along. When the questioning ended, the detective stood up and said quietly, "Abby Johnson, you are under arrest for real estate fraud, misuse of a power of attorney, and embezzlement." I saw the footage on the news. Abby, once so full of confidence, now handcuffed and weeping like a child. Outside the station, her husband shouted at reporters, "My wife was the one deceived, by her sister Carla," pathetically clinging to lies. But inside me, there was only stillness. The real battle, the courtroom, was yet to come. I steeled myself. The 8 months between Abby's arrest and the start of the trial slowly consumed everyone involved. Abby faced the weight of her crimes in custody. Her husband quickly filed for divorce. My parents drained nearly all their savings hiring expensive lawyers for her defense. And I waited with my daughter in that small, temporary apartment, counting the days. The $200 million contract I'd signed would be swallowed by legal fees. Even if I won, there would be no financial reward. But this wasn't about money anymore. Even so, I couldn't back down now. This wasn't about money. It was a fight to reclaim my dignity. And then the day of judgment arrived. Sitting in the defendant's chair, Abby looked even more haggard and lifeless than she had in the news footage I last saw of her. In the gallery sat my parents, who seemed to have aged years in just a few months. Abby's husband was nowhere to be seen. The prosecutor began in a calm but relentless voice, detailing how deliberate and malicious Abby's actions had been. While her sister was overseas, dedicating her entire career to an important assignment, the defendant exploited that trust. taking advantage of the fact that she was entrusted with her niece to orchestrate a plan to steal everything her sister owned. This is not merely a financial crime, it is a crime that desecrates the very foundation of human trust. On the screen appeared the photos Abby had posted to social media from Hawaii. Her smiling face, raising a glass of champagne, looked grotesque in the heavy silence of the courtroom. Her lawyer pleaded for leniency, claiming it had been a momentary lapse in judgment. But against the mountain of evidence presented by the prosecution, his words carried no weight. Eventually, my name was called. I took the witness stand, meeting Abby's eyes as she sat in the defendant's seat. The lawyer asked me, "Carla, what did that house mean to you?" I closed my eyes for a moment, then spoke slowly. It wasn't just a building. It was the fortress I built for my daughter and myself. A single mother trying to create a future with her own hands. And while I was away, I entrusted my most precious treasure, my daughter, to my only sister. Never could I have imagined that behind that trust, she was plotting to take everything from me. Abby didn't just steal my home, she destroyed my faith in people. My tearful plea left the courtroom in complete silence. In her final statement, Abby murmured a faint apology, but it no longer reached anyone's heart. And then the verdict was pronounced. The judge spoke gravely. Before delivering the sentence, this court must comment on the nature of this case. The defendant's motive, jealousy toward her successful sister, was deeply self-centered. Her methods, exploiting limited power of attorney and deceiving third parties, were deliberate and egregious. The judge fixed Abby with a piercing stare, then turned toward me. But what this court finds most reprehensible is that the defendant exploited the victim's deepest trust, the bond formed by being entrusted with her niece. To hide behind the mask of familial care while secretly stealing the mother's assets is an act that transcends ordinary fraud. It is an assault on human dignity itself. The air in the courtroom grew taut. In light of these considerations, the court hereby sentences the defendant, Abby Johnson, to 9 years in prison. Furthermore, the defendant is ordered to pay the plaintiff damages in the amount of $2.8 million. A short cry escaped my mother's lips. My father collapsed silently in his seat. Abby sat motionless, as if she couldn't comprehend what had just happened. 9 years. It was an even harsher sentence than what the prosecution had demanded. When I stepped into the cold marble hallway after the hearing, I found them waiting, just as I had expected. My father's face was twisted with a rage I had never seen before. His words weren't a question, but a curse. "You sent your own sister to prison. What kind of sister are you?" My mother, sobbing beside him, glared at me with eyes burning with hatred. "Monster, how dare you ruin her life like that?" I looked at them quietly, faces that had once waited lovingly for me to come home, now reflected nothing but hatred. Somewhere deep inside, something final broke apart with a sharp, silent crack. In a voice as cold as ice, I spoke my last words to them. "I didn't send her to prison. Her own crimes did, and your blind love for her. Don't ever call me your daughter again, because I no longer have parents." That day, my family ended, under the law and within my heart, completely and forever. As their curses echoed behind me, I walked away without ever looking back. The trial was over. Justice had been served, at least in form, but the true verdict would be rendered outside the courtroom in the cold reality that followed. First, the house. Mr. Ford's investigation confirmed that the buyers who had purchased my home were innocent third parties, unaware of any fraud. That meant they bore no legal fault, and I could never reclaim my house. My castle now belonged entirely to someone else. Next, the compensation. Based on the ruling, all of Abby's assets, her house, her cars, her bank accounts, even her designer goods, were seized and auctioned off. But most of her wealth had been built on loans and appearances. Even after everything was sold, the recovered amount didn't reach 20% of the $2.8 million in damages. Never had the phrase, "a drop in the bucket," felt so painfully real. And then, the fate of my family. Abby's husband finalized the divorce immediately after the verdict and moved to another state with their children. He continued to claim he, too, was a victim. My parents, buried under the massive debt they had taken on for Abby's defense, filed for bankruptcy. They lost their home and now live quietly in a small apartment, I've been told. Every week, they visit Abby in prison. 2 years passed after the sentencing. I had begun rebuilding my life with my daughter. Then, a letter arrived. From Abby. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, there was only one line. Why am I the only one who has to suffer? Without a sound, I tore the letter into tiny pieces and dropped them into the trash. Even after 2 years, she still understood nothing. Not the weight of her crime, nor the magnitude of what I had lost. In her mind, she was still the tragic heroine. I felt the last trace of any lingering attachment toward her fade away completely. My life is simpler now, more modest. But the view from the window of this small apartment means more to me than anything else. Because it's a view I earned myself, honestly. This isn't a story of victory. It's a record of a family destroyed by jealousy and blindness. And yet, I have no regrets. Because beyond this hollow triumph lies a quiet, genuine life with my beloved daughter. The ownership of my life belongs to no one else. It belongs to me.